Greetings everyone. Today let's talk about one idea which is on the minds of many crypto enthusiasts, and this is, will Bitcoin take over financial system? Well, here's the problem with this presumption. If you Google it and say Bitcoin will take over or something like that, we have like many headlines here. It could become 21st century gold. What will happen with Bitcoin in the next decade? There are some price forecasts and anything you actually will imagine. This is from 2021. Bitcoin will overtake fiat currency in global finance by 250. Okay, you get an idea. Bitcoin will take over, but question is, take over what? Will the financial system completely collapse and Bitcoin will be a replacement? Like, here's the thing that we had like banking crisis of 2023. I will just wiki banking crisis. Yeah, let's see. For instance, 2003 banking crisis. I have detailedly discussed them all, and this is the thing what they're implying, that rising interest rates will put enormous strain on bank balance sheets and they will be undercapitalized and they will fail. If not, central bank will print another money and bail them out. But if they do that, they will make inflationary spiral, which they want because they have to increase interest rates because they have to manage the previous inflation cycle, which happened at the end of COVID and at the start of 2022 when Ukraine war started. So, in other words, central banks cannot keep with the boat. They cannot bail out banks and put money into the system to stabilize it while fighting inflation instead. That was the idea in 2023, and if they will fail, there has to be something new. This is the idea. So, is the Bitcoin in place for that? Here's the truth. I really doubt about it, because when people are saying that Bitcoin will take over, it has to be extremely precise definition how that will take over. It will take over as an alternative to gold, or it will take over as an alternative to all major currencies and financial systems that there is. Like, these two are way different proportions, because gold is simply, if this is example, in one example, gold is simply a measure of value, and it's mostly used by doing nothing. It's stored for rainy day. Well, for instance, if war happens and everything in the world ends, you will still have gold because you had gold like 5,000 years ago. That's the one thing. But in today's world, gold doesn't actually do any kind of payment or monetary function as it did like 70 years ago. So that's the one thing. And on theory, it will be extremely easy to replicate and replace that, because, well, you don't have to have any regulatory framework, because like this is more based on people's perception of gold. People believe gold is store of value and they put their trust into gold, so we see the gold prices now are pretty stable. They are high, but they are stable. If we go to like TradingView and see gold market, you see that gold is making its function quite adequately. And just a second, let's see futures markets, and we see metals markets. And if, for instance, if you look at gold now, we see gold is standing as it should be. It's pretty. These are turbulent times, and we see that in the last couple of years. Let's see weekly chart. Gold is pretty much doing its function all right, I would say. If we see all that madness had happened since like COVID and war in Ukraine and now conflicts in Middle East, gold is here. Everything's happening. It's pretty stable. It manages its function. So maybe Bitcoin will be something like that. Some of the people will put money in Bitcoin and it will use them as a store of value, as an alternative to any kind of financial assets that we have. That's not unrealistic, and I think in some ways it's already been there for like 10 years. It's made this function as it is now for years now, but we don't have simply witnessed that. In other words, another scenario, would it replace like monetary systems in the global economies, like in UK or Switzerland or Eurozone and the United States and in China? I seriously doubt about it because here's the definition. Here's the problem. Problem is that each country, excuse me, one of the basic definitions of country and the basic pillars of country is the fact that it has its own fiscal and monetary policies. In other words, for state to exist, it needs to have tax revenue and it needs to have their own currency. Without that, country is not existing. Because if you go to history of civilization, every kind of civilization, everything that was predecessors of modern country or every kind of tribe or city state or whatever, they had their own form of currency. And the crucial thing was that they were able to control that currency. For instance, extreme examples goes from the ancient times and Middle Ages where someone could simply execute it or, I don't know, put lead in its mouth if someone tried to forge the currency. That was one of the harshest punishments. It was for forging currencies. Counterfeit currencies were like death penalties in every kind of countries for centuries, because country cannot exist if it cannot control its own money. So that's the thing. And how the hell any kind of country or monetary system in today's world will be able to control Bitcoin or use Bitcoin as the official legal tender? You have to think about it really hard, because let's take pound sterling or United States. Like for instance, pound sterling is dated roughly 1223 years ago and dollar was effectively made when the United States was born. So these are extremely old currencies, and they have made through several wars, to several revolutions, to several crises which had magnitude which outpassed everything that we have known for the last 50 years, for like tenfold. United States had civil war, United States had so much turbulences in its short history, so you couldn't even comprehend that. And same with that, with like United Kingdom, because this was actually before Norman invasion, and how much does pound sterling has endured for these times, what has happened, but pound sterling was pound sterling. How it did that? Here's the thing. It simply replaced itself, For long years, United States and pound in 20th century was backed by gold. Then it wasn't. It was debased. And if something bad will happen, guess what? They will debase it or somehow rename it again, and it will be sterling or United States dollar into different nomination. Or they could make it digital. For them it will be way easier to make it digital than to apply any other cryptocurrency, because they have vast resources. And if there is that angle that blockchain or some sort of new technologies via blockchain might significantly improve payment systems or whatever, probably central banks will work on that themselves, so they will make blockchain or some sort of technology that they control. Because if they cannot control it, there is no point of monetary systems. And there hasn't been like examples in history where large country has survived without its own monetary system that they could control. And that's the thing about currencies and cryptocurrencies. No one will actually allow it in their right mind to have like one debased currency, one cryptocurrency with no owner, no controls, and no systems to simply freely float it. It's impossible. Like that's the thing. I don't know if we could go in today's world specifics about monetary policies. There is like clearing systems. There is like ways how they have to ensure the banking system functions well, how the financial markets has liquidities. That's all based on the existing currencies, and there wouldn't be one cryptocurrency which is created by some unknown blocks that will replace that. It's not going to happen. So if you say that Bitcoin is going to take over, you have to understand which is the thing, whether it's store of value and some sort of equivalent to gold or any other precious metal, which actually Bitcoin kind of does now, or it will replace it, or it will replace like euro, dollar, and pound at the same time. That won't happen, because countries have legal initiative to control currencies, and if there will be a crisis, they simply will take and create new currency.